Thanks. Welcome back to the Sports Show. Every now and then, Baz, you get a legend.
Yep.
And I reckon we throw that word around loosely sometimes. So I thought I'd just do a quick read of I won't give you the whole thing because show only goes for an hour and it'll take all of it, but have a listen to this. He started as a jockey when he was 16 years old. He's rode over 2,300 winners. That's 2,300 winners on a career that spanned nearly 30 years. Of course, most people remember him in 1972 on Piping Lane, winning the Melbourne Cup. 1980, he does it again on Belledale Ball. SAJC had a couple in that. Rain Lover, Grand Scale, Amarat. And of course, I remember him mostly, other than the big wins in the Melbourne Cup, on banjo. And Melbourne Cup, there he is, sitting there. He's grabbing the race leaders as they come on. They've won it. And we talk about the great Johnny Letts. Johnny, thanks for joining us, mate.
Thanks, Phil. Good to be here. Good to see you again, Barry.
Yes, mate.
Yeah,
No, I'd love
long
to see
time.
you, mate. I was just saying to Phil before, mate, I'd like $1, just $1, for every speaking engagement that you have done. I wouldn't be sitting here, would I?
I've done a lot of them, but you know, the thing about them, Barry, that I do like, and you'll feel the same about this, Phil. If you're passionate about your industry and your sport, you love it.
Yeah.
And that's what I find. I'm very passionate about it. I love it. I mean, as you know, you guys will be up and you'll be talking about your sport. You'll get criticism. But look, as long as it's positive, you can handle it. If someone gets up and gives you negative on your sport, you feel like you don't want to be there. But over the years, I'd say all of us guys, the three of us guys, have been pretty lucky because we've had positive about our industry, haven't we?
Yeah.
And I can't remember. I mean, people will say to me, you know, you'll say, oh, you pulled that horse up in the last week, let's say. I said, yeah, I did. And they say, what? I said, yeah, well, if I didn't, I'd still be going around out there. You know, and things like that. And so you laugh it off. And then they say, oh, how can we beat him? So this is just your industry. You love it.
Yeah, it's hard to go. You know, the negativity, though, it's amazing that someone says to you, oh, he didn't ride very well, and you're walking away going, yeah, mate, 2,300 winners get stuffed. I reckon I've done okay. So I reckon if you've got a record like yours, mate, you can walk away with a smile on your face. Yeah. Mate, I know everybody asks you the standard question, favourite horse, this and that, but I want to talk about banjo just for a moment. Mate, you had a great relationship with banjo over a long period of time.
Yes.
And then certain things happened after Banjo's passing, you know, things named after him. The attachment to banjo for you?
It was a bonding, like a relationship that I didn't ever think it would be that way. Because when I first went into, which I was with 10, and we had to get a horse to do the interviews, and it was a sample of what was going to come. Because what a lot of people don't realise about the interviews on horseback, and this started with Channel 9 at Oakbank. And it was Desi Flavel, the late Desi Flavel. Remember Desi? Great man.
Yeah, I remember
and
Desi
Desi said to me when I was up at Oakbank, and I was still riding, in 1986, he said, do you think you could interview a jockey on horseback? I said, well, I talked to a lot of them. He said, no, what if we get you a horse and we put a microphone on you, we have the cameras on you, and you interview the jockey of a winning race? And I thought, well, Desi, we could give it a try. Yeah. Give it a try. Yeah. So anyway, the first time I went out there, I think we had a car battery on the horse's back, and this was all modern technology. Improved it a lot over the years, and we had aerials going uphill. I thought, there's not enough room on that horse for me, really. Anyway, we went out, and I'll never forget it. It was Mark Faust, and he rode a horse called Brown Cast, won the Great Eastern. Wow. And you know, then I went to Melbourne and worked for 10 a couple of years later, after I retired, and Channel 10, Mike Orson said to me, we heard that you did an interview on horseback. I said, that's right. He said, do you think you could do it again? I said, get the right material. I said, and we can.
Yeah.
And along came banjo, and along came all the modern technology. And it was just a bonding. And you know, sometimes you look back over your life and you think to yourself, what would I change in my life? You know, if you ever had the chance. Well, there was one thing in my life which I wished I could have changed, because after I retired, which I had to do through ill health, 6 months after I retired from calling, doing interviews, banjo died. Yeah. You know, and I wasn't there. Yeah. I wasn't there because he was still in Melbourne. And Andrew Clark rang me from Legends, and you guys know the Legends. You know, you've got all your champion racehorses, Might and Power and Saint. All of those horses are at the Legends. Now, on their day, he was the first one to greet them. Yeah. And, you know, I always said to Channel 7 when I went there, I said, if he could talk, I wouldn't need to be here because he was that good. Yeah. But they rang me the day after he died, and Andrew Clark said, could we bury him at Legends?
Yeah.
And we buried him at Geelong the day before.
Wow.
But he brought all of those horses in.
Yeah.
Not only the Melbourne Cup winners, but horses like Apache Cat. All of those horses, he was the first to greet them.
Yeah.
He greeted them, and it was their big day. It was their grand final, and I'd love him to have been when they all go.
Yeah.
And the old fella's right in the middle there, but it's not going to be.
Just quickly, I know Baz wants to get in on this, but when you say he greeted them, you have to be a special horse to be able to do that. I mean, you know, we say, oh, he just greeted him, but never once did he look like he was, you know, was he just unbelievably docile?
Phil, he was that good. A horse called Americane. When I went up to Americane, now Americane's one of the best looking horses I've ever seen. Nice big black horse, a beautiful animal, stallion. But and the English and the French jockeys will always, when you go to do the interview, they say, just what's the horse? Because those stallions, they will just grab.
Right.
They are aggressive. And Banjo was going along, and I'll never forget this day. And I was just ready to into Gerard Mosse, and I was just ready. And Americane went to grab him by the ear like that, and Banjo just went like that. And I reckon I read his mind because he missed him, you know. And I reckon Banjo looked round and said, "You won't get me. You're not quick enough, boy. You won a Melbourne Cup, and I'm quicker than you." You know. Anyway, and then another horse kicked him another day. Just got him, but he was clever. He could read the mind of the horses, you know. And if you went in, and like Bruce McAvaney, as we know, famous Bruce is, and I used to have a direct link between him and the Channel 7 box, you know, upstairs. And Bruce would always say to me, "Oh, let's see might and power." He said, "Number one, grab him," and like that. And it's not an easy job to do because you don't know the results of the races. See, and I can't do any rehearsal. I mean, we do 37 races in that week. Yeah. We do the Cox Plate, and we do every race on those programs. And a guy said to me once, he said, "Oh, it'll be easy for you in the Cox Plate." He said, because Octagonal or Lonray said, because it'll win it. They said, "What are you going to say to him?" I said, "Well, it's no good rehearsing. The one that they told me got beat anyway, so that throws you out completely." And I just go as it rolled. And I was lucky because I could hear the caller, and I'd never seen, all those years, I was there 20 years and I didn't see one race. And I never seen a race. I heard them because I was round at the 1400. Yeah. I heard them, but I'd never seen a race. And it was only through Bruce and picking up Greg Miles, the call, that I could work out, you know, and I'd hear Greg do the call and he'd say, you take Lonro in the Australian Cup, he'd say, "Lonro's got knocked down at the furlong post, he can't get out, he's in trouble." And then, because then straight away that was me, if he gets up, I say to Darren Beedman, "Gee, at the furlong post, Darren, you're in a lot of trouble."
Yes.
Yeah. And that was the click, and that was the relationship, the working relationship we had, you know, with the caller and me.
Understand.
When you talk about attachment to horses, I read with interest about your attachment with Piping Lane.
Piping Lane, yes.
But you never saw that horse again?
Never.
After the Melbourne Cup victory?
No, I didn't, Barry. I went there, never knew Piping Lane, never heard of him. I went there, and as I walked out the jockey's room, and of course the Melbourne Cup day is just unbelievable. There was 110,000 people there. And I'd never been to Flemington, never seen it. I knew Roy Higgins, I knew Harry White, and a couple of jockeys because they came here. But that's all I knew. And when I walked out, the stewards come in, they say, "Okay, jockeys, get me on it." And you'd walk out the jockey's room. And when I walked out, number 16, I'll never forget, it was Piping Lane. He was right by the door where they walked.
Waiting for you.
Yeah, like as if he was waiting for me.
What do you mean?
I walked out, got on him.
You ready or what?
Yeah, come on, hurry up, get on him. I want to get up. Anyway, I walked out, got on him, and I can honestly say, all that I seen of Piping Lane was his mane, the backs of his ears. Never got to pat him. Two things in my life, three things in my life I would love to have really changed, which I'll never be able to, was to go to Pat Piping Lane because he set the path to my career, my future. Yeah. And I never had the chance ever to go and pat him and say, "Thanks for what you did for me." We went down to Tasmania when he turned 28, and this was a sad day for me because we flew down and it was a reunion. And when we got there, the owner had always had his colours on flagpole.
Yep.
And they were half-mast. And he died that night.
Oh, wow.
So I never got to thank him. Belldale Ball, the same thing. Never got to pat him or say goodbye, thanks for what you did. And the third one was when I was at school at Lefevre Tech. Yeah, great school, lovely area. But there was a Mr. Manning.
Yep.
And he said to me one day, he said, what are you going to do when you leave school? And like in those days, you guys remember we had intermediates. And I said, well, Mr. Manning, I want to get my intermediate. And I wasn't real smart at school because I went to Brompton Infant, I went to Brompton Primary, and then I went to Seaton, I went to Albert, and I went to Hendon, I went to Port Adelaide. I had a lot of trouble staying in one spot.
A lot of people looking for you.
Yes. Yeah. So I finished up at Lefevre Tech.
Yep.
And Mr. Manning said to me one day, he said, what are you going to do when you leave school? I said, well, I'd like to get my intermediate, Mr. Manning. I said, my mother would love me to work in a bank. And I mean, at that stage, I was that high, and I mean, where's a guy that I'm going to get a balaclava and a gun, you know, in a bank? She said, I want you to get a bank job. Anyway.
Not do a bank job.
So anyway, he said, why don't you become a jockey? And I'd never been on a horse. I was 13, nearly 14. And I said, well, I've never been on a horse, Mr. Manning. And he said, well, why don't you try it? And I said, well, he said, you've got the perfect credentials. I said, well, what are they? And he said, well, you're not real big. He said, and you're not real smart. And I thought, hang on a minute.
Oh, man.
Anyway, so yeah, perfect credentials. So I went and got on a horse up in the North Adelaide Parklands and it tore around the paddock, no saddle bridle on it. I found out later it was only walking, but I thought it tore around there. Anyway, I never ever had the chance, and this is something I'd love to have done, Phil, in my life, gone back to Lefevre Tech, and 13 years after he told me to become a jockey, I won a Melbourne Cup. And you know, I would have loved to have walked in that room. He died in the meantime. I would have loved to have walked in that room and walked up to him without him even knowing I was there, and just gone up and shook his hand and said, you know, you put me down on my life's path.
Yeah.
And he did it because, and I, when we talk to schools and we talk to kids at school, I say to them sometimes, and this is not preaching to you guys or anything, but I say to them sometimes, I said, sometimes in school, I said, you guys haven't got a direction. But I said, your teachers can see it. I said, my teacher's seen it. If it hadn't have been for him, who knows?
Yeah.
I might have, well, who knows?
Well, you might have been a bank robber.
Yeah, I couldn't say over the counter.
Is there anything you want to say or do to me, mate? Because I don't want to be number 4. There are 2 horses you didn't pat that died, the teacher that died, mate. We're going to know him if you say something.
No, it's been great being here, but I know Barry's very passionate about Port Power and Port Adelaide Footy Club and you guys. Now, Phil, who's your footy team?
No, I'm working with the Brisbane Lions at the moment, so Brisbane Lions are my team at the moment.
Hey, jump on the bandwagon, is it?
Hey, he's been working with the Lions for a couple of years.
Yeah,
mate.
just quietly, mate. I'm a quiet achiever, mate. So we're chipping away pretty nicely. Hey, we need to get to a break. I want you to stay, mate, because we want to get on to have a chat about Belldale Ball and the Melbourne Cup and what that meant to you and a couple of the other horses. So we'll go to a break. Stay with us. Johnny Letts when we come back.